A surprise major update has come to Mario Maker 2 and so many amazing new features are being added in. I love almost every new addition, but just as an excuse to talk about how much I'm looking forward to playing around with everything included here, I decided to rank all the new additions from worst to best. I believe this update is going to be very significant because we're finally getting enough content to really make Mario Maker 2 feel like a true sequel, and it actually kind of supports my theory about its rushed development cycle. This is mainly because there are so many major features now coming to Mario Maker 2 so long after it's released. It's almost going to be a year since its initial launch. So when I'm ranking these features today, the positions in the list will mainly be dictated by how significant of a feature I think the addition is going to be, how many new creative possibilities I think it's going to provide for courses, and in general, just how much fun I think it's going to be to implement into levels. It's honestly just personal opinion, and since I'm always interested in what you have to say as well, be sure to leave me your rankings in the comment section down below. It may take some time to get fully adjusted to all these new additions and to play around with them and experiment in many ways, but from the early stages, this is what I'm thinking here. These are just my opinions. There are 23 features to rank here, so let's waste no further time and get straight into it. The feature coming in at spot number 23 is the Propeller box. Now don't get me wrong, I love the Propeller Mario power-up that's included in the new Super Mario Bros. U style in Mario Maker 2, but including this just feels like a way to get the Propeller power-up into the 3D World style. Now this is fine as an addition, but because it lacks a lot of originality, that limits its placement on the list. At spot number 22, we have the on-off trampoline. This is going to be a fun feature to have to allow you to turn these things on and off to have more control for the levels where you want to implement them in, but I don't think the trampoline has too many uses compared to many other objects that could use an on-off switch. At spot number 21, we have the red POW box. This is an item that you could wear in the 3D World style, run and jump into a bunch of blocks, and it'll explode everything like a standard POW block would do. You get 3 uses of the red POW box, which extends its lifespan a little bit. Compared to the rest of the features that I'm going to be talking about today, it doesn't stand out as much. At spot number 20, we have the standard Mecha Koopa. The first of the new enemies that I'm going to be talking about today, and yes, I'm going to be talking about all 3 variations of the Mecha Koopa in separate spots. This one is relatively basic compared to the others, which are brand new additions, however. It doesn't stop the Mecha Koopa from being a fun enemy in its appearance in Mario World and the new Super Mario Bros. Titles though, and I'm going to be interested to see how it converts to the other styles as well. You could stomp on this enemy and then throw it as a projectile, which is a neat concept. Just compared to the rest of the features on this list, it's not as massive of an impact. At spot number 19, we have the Cursed Key. The key item is always interesting to allow you to unlock doors, and in multiplayer creates a fun dynamic because whoever gets to the key first is the one who unlocks the door and gets to progress faster throughout the level. This item being introduced even further increases how fun this dynamic could be because maybe now you hesitate on wanting to grab that key first compared to your opponents. This is because whoever touches the cursed key first gets Phanto unleashed on them, which is not something that you want to happen. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this item shapes up in multiplayer levels, but because this doesn't have too much of an impact elsewhere, that's what limits its spot on the list. Next up at spot number 18, we have the first power-up, which is the Power Balloon from Super Mario World. This power-up was pretty highly requested to come into the original Mario Maker, but because of the Cape Feather's existence, we just couldn't have it at the time because we could only have one per style. But now we get an extra one being added in, and this one looks like a ton of fun to use. It allows you to have more aerial mobility, which is something that I think is very useful because most of the power-ups for aerial movement mainly focus on speed, whereas this one actually allows you to have more dynamic movement, which could be useful in certain situations. Next up at spot number 17, we have another power-up that's pretty similar to the Power Balloon that you don't realize at first glance, this being the Frog Suit from Super Mario Bros. 3. How could these power-ups be similar? You use the Power Balloon in the air, and the Frog Suit is mainly for the water, but the Frog Suit has very similar properties to the Power Balloon by allowing you to have more dynamic control of your character underwater, which is why I believe the Frog Suit's inclusion in Mario Maker 2 is much more important than the Power Balloons. You don't see as many water levels in Mario Maker, and I believe that's because there's not going to be as many people online who want to play them, because water levels have this stereotype of not being as fun to play because of the control scheme. But this power-up's inclusion actually makes the control scheme a lot better because you could swim much faster. It also allows you to walk on water too, which is an added perk. At spot number 16, we have another power-up being the Boomerang Flower. This one's for the Super Mario 3D World style, and this allows you to throw projectiles that go forward and backwards like a standard boomerang. This could be useful for knocking out a large array of enemies. It's a good addition. At spot number 15, we have another item for the Super Mario 3D World style, this being the Cannon Box. This item I could definitely see being very fun to use once we learn more creative possibilities for how to implement it into levels. This item allows you to charge up cannon shots and launch them at enemies. They could also go through clear pipes to collect coins as well, as shown in the trailer. Another item for the 3D World style is the Bullet Bill Mask. This item allows you to have horizontal flight in the air extremely fast. I could see many many unique challenges including this item because it requires you to glide into the air and not come into contact with any hazards that are in the air, while being different from an item like the clown car because this one moves much faster. In the trailer they show you collecting red coins, and this could be a very interesting dynamic with this item, and some could be pretty difficult to obtain. At spot number 13 we have the Goomba mask. This item was a lot of fun in 3D World, and I'm glad they're bringing it back for Mario Maker 2. This item basically allows you to transform into a Goomba because enemies will treat you as if you are one, not approaching you, which will allow you to sneak around in these secret agent type levels like we've seen in Mario Maker in the past, but now they'll be able to be implemented much better because you actually have an ability to disguise yourself as an enemy. If you end up losing this power up, well then the dynamic is lost and you'll be exposed and probably killed by the enemies around you. So it really requires you to be stealthy, and that's a very interesting dynamic created. Next up at spot number 12 we have an item that I was surprised wasn't included in Mario Maker to begin with, and this is the Super Acorn. This is the standard power up introduced in New Super Mario Bros. U, but for some reason in the New Super Mario Bros. U style in Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2, it's not there and instead is replaced by the Propeller power-up. Now I much prefer the Propeller power-up to the Super Acorn, so I understand Nintendo's decision there, but if you're gonna base a game style off of the newer Mario game, wouldn't it make more sense to include the power-up from that game? Nevertheless, that's not going to be a debate that we have to go over anymore because the Super Acorn is now being included in Mario Maker 2. This power-up allows you to glide through the air, and you can collect coins with it and create some pretty interesting dynamics with enemies, and also cling to walls, which I think is going to be a very useful feature to have in the game. Coming in at spot number 11, we have the blue Mecha Koopa. This seems like a really interesting variation as they could shoot laser beams, and at night they have jet engines which are rideable. There could be some very interesting levels solely based off of the inclusion of this enemy. Up next is, what do you know, the final variation of the Mecha Koopa enemy, this being the red Mecha Koopa. So far this is my favorite inclusion because they shoot homing missiles at you, which could create some very interesting dynamics as you have to avoid the hazards. It seems like a very unique inclusion because you could never really picture the Mecha Koopa doing anything like this before. At spot number 9 we start a trend that we're going to be talking about for the next 7 entries. This is the Koopalings. Now if you remember those wishlist videos for Mario Maker that myself and many other content creators on this platform made about features that you really desperately wanted to be included in Mario Maker, but you really didn't think there was too much of a possibility for them, and Koopalings generally fit this criteria. Of course we wanted more boss possibilities in Mario Maker, but to think that you would include not one, not two, but all of the Koopalings is just insane to me. That's why the Koopalings, all of them, are so high on this list, and I'm generally just going to be ranking each individually based on how many creative possibilities I think can be made for them. And obviously the one at the bottom of the Koopalings would have to be Larry because he's probably the least creative out of all of them. I'm not saying that I hate Larry or anything like that, but he doesn't do as much unique compared to the other Koopalings. At spot number 8 we have Iggy. He shoots faster lasers and can run around a little bit, but that's about it. Spot number 7 we have Wendy, who's pretty unique because she has bouncing projectiles across the stage. At spot number 6 we have Roy. He jumps down and shocks you, which is kind of unique. And at spot number 5 we have Morton because he does basically the same thing. At spot number 4 we have Ludwig von Koopa. Yes, it's pronounced Ludwig, not Ludwig. I always pronounced it Ludwig for the entirety of my life until I found out that Smash Brothers pronounced it Ludwig, which just completely changed how I thought about the character. But in all seriousness though, Ludwig is a pretty interesting Koopaling, shoots 3 shots at a time and has a very high jump. The one I'm probably most excited to play around with is Lemmy, who comes in at spot number 3 on this list, and this is because he shoots the balls which could bounce around the stage, and if they're able to hit around other projectiles and stuff like that, this can end up being a very fun mechanic. You could maybe build a structure around Lemmy that's based off of you bouncing off of the ball and then jumping on it. Now we get into the top 2 big new features, and coming in at spot number 2 is probably one of the most unexpected things in my opinion for Mario Maker 2, this being the mushroom from Super Mario Bros. 2. Yeah, when we don't have a Super Mario Bros. 2 game style, I didn't really expect there to be a power-up from that game. Then again, we had the unlockable Mario Land power-up, but I didn't really expect any more to be included, unless of course there was an entire game style being added in based off of it. Nevertheless, we got this mushroom and I'm so excited to play around with this. This mushroom basically allows you to stand on enemies just as you could in Super Mario Bros. 2, and then you could pick up and carry these enemies. This creates so many possibilities, and they showcase many of them in the trailer, but I'm just waiting for so many of these new levels to come out solely based around this power-up and everything that you could do with it. You can pick up chain chomps and throw them to collect objects. You could break bricks by throwing certain enemies as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this item is utilized. And coming into the number 1 spot, you all knew it was coming at this spot. I couldn't really put it any less. This is the World Maker feature, which is just insane. You can create full-on Mario worlds with your levels based on certain themes and then share those worlds online, effectively allowing people to play full Mario games from different people. Create the Mario game of your vision in the aesthetic that you choose based off of the theme you want in whatever way, and you can share that with other people. This is just an incredible feature. It encourages more online and community play in Mario Maker 2, which I thought was very lacking. There was a lot of people who gave up on Mario Maker 2 relatively early on, and I don't really understand this. The Wii U original sold considerably less, but for some reason doesn't have as much of an active community. I know there wasn't much major coming out in holiday 2015 for the Wii U, so Mario Maker coming out in September of that year kind of became that massive title for the rest of the year, and the community had to sort of revolve around that. But I really just don't understand why Mario Maker's community hasn't taken off as much. Maybe it's the control scheme not being as intuitive as it was on the Wii U. But regardless of what that is, the community hasn't been as active for Mario Maker 2, and I feel that this being created will reignite the community to create so many new and interesting concepts for levels, along with all of the other features that I talked about today. And this is where I ask, what are your favorite features introduced for Mario Maker 2 in this new update? Do you agree with my rankings? I mean, even if I ranked something low on the list, I'm still really excited for it anyways. I just don't think it has as much of a creative impact as something like the World Maker or the Mario Bros. 2 Mushroom, which topped the list for me. Let me know in a comment down below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Check out some of the previous videos that I made that I linked for you on the screen right now, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.